So I want to welcome everybody back to the Initiative podcast. We've got episode 22 being recorded right. Yeah, that's what you're watching right now. So thank you guys for coming back. We've got a solo podcast coming back, and I'm going to be doing a lot more of these as the podcast keeps going because I enjoy creating these. I think there's kind of a lane for me to talk about my filmmaking and the experiences I'm going through and kind of be personal with the audience, but also give a lot of the information that I'm learning in real time. And I want to be able to create content where I can take what I'm learning, process it, and then give it back to the people, the way I get information on YouTube. I think it's a great way to help people learn and to create an audience. So look for more of this in the future. To transition, I want to pay my respects to those who lost their lives, the 9 people in that helicopter crash, the likes of which Kobe Bryant was flying in with his daughter, Gianna. I know there was like a baseball coach in there with his family, and all the people who lost their lives, the sisters and brothers of those people, and the mothers and fathers and the grandparents and the cousins of all those people and the friends and it's a tragedy. I know a lot of people who really, really love Kobe Bryant and looked up to him as a role model. And I personally cannot say that I did, but I know a lot of people who did, and I feel for a lot of those people. And just the fact that his wife, Vanessa Bryant, and his other 3 daughters have to go and live their life without both the father, husband Kobe Bryant, and the sister and daughter Gianna. It's a tragedy, and it's I think it's the whole world's in pain today. And life can flash, like it can go away in an instant, and we just have to remember how blessed we are to be able to wake up every day, feel love and create or do whatever we do. And if you're not enjoying what you're doing, make sure you head on that journey, because life is so short and precious. It's literally a blip in the universe and in time, and you come and go, and it's hug your family members. It's really sad for me, and I'm not even a huge Kobe fan, and I'm still it's really paining me. But yeah, rest in peace to all those people, and my respect goes out to the loved ones. I want to talk about, before we get into what today's podcast is going to be about, I also want to touch on last night. The Grammys happened. The 2019 awards went underway, and I just want to give a shout out to all the artists. I'm a huge fan of music. I pay so much attention to the music industry, as you may have seen in the last podcast where I talked with Eric Lewis, who does a lot of he has a React channel where him and his mom react to rappers who put out songs, and I think he's going to expand into doing even more genres of music. I think he's starting out with Justin Bieber. So if you haven't seen that, give that a listen after this one. And but yeah, so I'm a huge fan of music, so I paid attention, and I gotta say I'm really inspired and impressed by Billie Eilish, because I just relate to her in the fact that she's my age, and she's accomplished so many things at my age, and it just motivates me. It makes me realize how many limits we put on ourselves, and if she can do that, why can't I? It makes me feel that way, and I just wanted to shout that out. Hopefully I can create some kind of video content for her one day. It's a goal of mine to work with really successful musicians, obviously Travis Scott, who's one of my, right here, Astroworld, one of my big inspirations just in life. Seeing Billie, she's now on that list of just people who inspire me at 18 to win 4 Grammy Awards, to beat out artists like Ariana Grande and someone else who had a huge year, Lizzo. Mad respect to her too for doing her thing. I really like her message. But and all the artists who performed, I think Alicia Keys is an amazing host, and obviously artist. She's an amazing singer. I was a fan of the show, and just like really like music inspires me so much in that way, and so it was just cool to see. But I got a few more announcements, and then we'll get into the subject matter. Obviously, for those of you who don't know, we are giving away, by we I mean Thuzy, we are giving away a pair of Apple AirPod Pros, and here's the info for the giveaway right here. So the giveaway, obviously, when we get to 100 subscribers is when we're going to put all the names of the people who submitted their videos, their screen recordings, into a bowl. I'm going to announce it on this channel and who won, and we're going to go buy the AirPod Pros. It's going to be a vlog, and I'm going to ship them off. So I'm really excited to do that giveaway, and it's done really well for the channel. And I just go subscribe if you haven't, and submit your entry for the giveaway. You have 3 opportunities to enter. So if you've entered on one video, make sure you enter on all the rest of them. And obviously the goal is to promote the Thuzy Productions channel with this giveaway. So if you've been following me or you want to support my newest initiative, go enter that giveaway, because you might as well get some reward for giving me support if I'm going to be doing such a thing. So and then so let's get into the topic of today's video, which is how I created a documentary entirely by myself. Now, there's obviously an asterisk next to that. I filmed 99.99% of the video that was in the film, and I edited the entire video myself. I didn't have help editing, but I did have some help with the audio, meaning I downloaded some of the music in the movie from YouTube, and my friend Zaire made a song for me, and it's on the last episode on YouTube if you didn't catch it. Zaire is an up-and-coming rapper that I know, and he's the most talented rapper I've heard that's not famous yet. And so I just wanted to honestly get him on my first film, so when he does blow up and we're friends and we're both successful in our own crafts, that'll just be kind of cool to have as a little timepiece that we've been working together. And I hope he does. I want to support him, he wants to support me. So check out Desire. It's D'' Zaire, Zaire. You can find him on all the music streaming platforms. Check him out. But other than that, I had some help with one of the dads on the team. He GoPro'd all the games from behind the home plate, so I snatched some of that footage too and got his permission to do so. But putting it all together pretty much with no production crew, literally no production crew, fairly little experience. I vlogged, which I consider documentary filmmaking, but I had never done something I've never made a film like that. So it was just a really awesome experience. And I think documentary filmmaking is, I don't want to say easier, because I really respect the craft of documentary filmmaking, and we'll get into that as I talk about it more. But documentary filmmaking to me is the next step between just regular YouTube content, whether that's vlogging or react videos or whatever, all the content you see that takes up a lot of the space on YouTube. I think documentary filmmaking, if you're into filmmaking, is a great segue into maybe more produced filmmaking, short films or movies, or it's just a way for you to be doing filmmaking, and you can really hone in on that craft, which is kind of what I plan on doing for the next foreseeable future. I plan on really honing my craft in the documentary space and growing something in the documentary space. But I think it would be you can make a documentary fairly easily compared to making a short film with a script and actors. You can do it more on the go. It's more similar to the traditional YouTube content creation, where you kind of film and edit and all at your house, and you don't need a huge game plan, because documentary filmmaking you kind of make on the go. So I want to talk about the stuff I learned in the process of creating this film, from concept to completion, This isn't going to include too much about the theater, more so just the making of the movie itself. So I want to get into that right now. So we're going to break this up into 3 sections. The first section is like what I learned and what I went through preparing for the creation of this film. So this is going to be, I titled this section in my notes, The Prep. So I'm going to talk about some of this stuff right now. So this documentary came about as I was a manager for the team. I had created a hype video that kind of went like a little bit, it didn't go viral, but it got a ton of views relative to what I had been getting on YouTube already. But it got I think it has 2,000 views to this day, and it got 1,500 in the first week or something. So it definitely had a drop off, but people at other schools were watching it. So I was actually asked to be a manager on the team and keep doing content creation for the baseball team at that school. And I was planning on making a second hype video to release when the playoffs started, to kind of hype people up for the playoffs and get some support for the team through that. And that would have been very easy for me because I had already made a hype video. I already did a good job on a hype video, and just taking clips from a whole season and putting them into a singular hype video would have been a much easier task than taking clips from just weightlifting in some of the practices and turning that into a hype video. I would have had more to work with and the same product to create. So I could have done a better job on a hype video for sure. But I was filming for this hype video, and during that process, I was watching over this footage that I had gotten at one of the first practices after the team got selected, the roster was made, and I was looking at this and I was like, this looks like documentary footage. This looks like the B-roll at the beginning of a documentary. And it was footage of the players removing the tarp from the field to really do their first practice on the field. And players were talking, the coaches were doing a team huddle, talking about what their goals were for the season, what their expectations were. And I was just capturing all this, and I left that practice and I was walking to my house. My girlfriend was walking with me, or I think I was walking in my car actually to drive her home, but that's an unimportant detail. We were walking somewhere, and after I left that practice, she was just getting out of her dance practice, and I was like, yo, I have this idea. It's kind of scary to think about. And I told her I wanted to make a documentary. And it was it's when I get ideas and decide on them, I'll talk about it as if I'm deciding about it. But most of the time when I'm doing that, I'm already low key decided what I'm going to do. Meaning I was thinking about doing the documentary. I was telling people I was thinking about doing it. But I was just a permission away from doing it. So pretty much I just asked the coaches, and once they told me I could do it, I decided to do it. And I had this moment of realization where I was like, whoa, this is a real commitment. Just the fact that I was going to be at the practices as a manager and I was already going to be filming. Now there's this extra level of challenge, because making a documentary was something I had never even come close to doing. I had made close to 100 vlogs. I had made the hype video. I had done some pretty creative things on my channel, creative ideas that I had come up with, but never anything as wholesome and daunting as a documentary. And I had that moment of realization where I was like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm committing to this. This cannot be taken away from me. I'm going to be at the games. I'm going to sacrifice to make this happen. And that's when I really began this project. So that's how it began. That's how it came about. And there's the first thing I learned was the commitment aspect. What does it mean to commit to something and create a goal for yourself and actually stick to it despite the hardships that may come your way. And I realized that I would have to do that, and throughout the process I would learn what that actually entails. So that if you're going to make a documentary, you have to know that to actually create and have a film done takes tons of sacrifice, tons of commitment, and tons of like just being available and going to the places you need to be, and being at the being at the events that are going to be important to your story. That's like that alone is a huge commitment and task, and that cannot be overlooked in this podcast, really. I filmed pretty much every shot myself. If not, I had this buddy who would come to the games. Sometimes I would be like, hey, here's my phone. Can you go get an angle over there? And I would also be recording because I had to keep the scoreboard. So I couldn't really move around during these games. A lot of the shots were from the same place. So sometimes I would ask someone to like go take my phone or take their phone and record it over at that angle over there. And that was very few shots. That was probably like 1 or 2 shots in the whole film. I asked, right when I decided I was going to do it, the next day I went and asked Mr. Conley, who's a film teacher at the school, and he is like he's a filmmaker. He has like a production company. He's like really, he's done some crazy things, and I'm actually trying to get him on one of these podcasts. But I think he had something to do with the America to Me documentary, which was like huge. It's on Stars. So I asked him, I was like, can you film a documentary alone? And he was like, yeah, it can be done. It's just a challenge. But it can be done. You just have to tell a good story. And it doesn't matter what equipment you have, just tell the story. And at that time, I was filming with like a point and shoot camera that was not like good. It was it would probably be worth like $200 today, which is like not an expensive camera. Like you're not going to get much for that. That being said, like for what it was, it did a good job, but like, you know, it wasn't a DSLR. I couldn't attach lenses. I couldn't attach a microphone to it. So I kind of was like, it was kind of like a novice piece of equipment, and that's what I started the film with, but it was the best I had. And I just didn't let that be an obstacle. I didn't care. I just did what I had to do. I made the best shots that I could. I did the best that I could with that camera. And then eventually I upgraded to the Canon 80D, and I bought a nice lens, and that's when the quality kind of took the next step. But that was midway through filming. That was halfway through the season. So I kind of pieced that movie had like so many different cameras involved, because there were certain interviews where I would borrow cameras from Mr. Conley from the film room, and he was really supportive. So having like that mentorship sort of, and like just having like an older person kind of give me the go ahead, like you can do this, just make sure these basic principles are in line, meaning just like tell a great story, and really bring your best effort every time you film. Once I got that was like all I needed to make sure I went and got it done. And then I started telling everyone about it. All the teammates were cool with it. I started watching sports documentaries to kind of learn what those stories would involve, and like, how can you like, obviously it would have been dope if they won, which I can tell you now, spoiler, they didn't win state. Obviously you want that to happen, like as a supporter of the team and like the storyteller. It would have been a sick moment, and many sick moments were captured in the film. But you had like most times when you like the odds of me recording the team that won state that year on a whim, like that, I knew that was unlikely just for any team to win state. So something I had to accept was like, what there's probably gonna have to be another angle I take. And as much as I thought the guys were talented enough to win state, I had to like be ready. So every shot I was taking was its own story. It was, every shot mattered to me because it was its own piece. I didn't know what was about to happen in front of the camera. So like I'm literally every pitch I can, I'm recording. Every at bat I can, I'm trying to get every play on camera. And meanwhile, I'm the only guy filming. So I have to be like a master as much as I can be with the camera. And then like changing cameras midway through and having to learn a whole new system, that was its own challenge. But I started watching sports documentaries to try to get some ideas of stories and like different angles I could take, and this was all my first time. So yeah, every shot that I was taking was it's like I was like, I would be recording, right? And then I would be like, okay, this, like, based on what this has happened and based on this happening, this shot fits into the story. How? And I'm already like, I've got this already, like, this movie in my mind of what I've already shot. And that's during every shot. I'm thinking about how this relates to the story. So that was something that required, like, it inherently made me present and, like, super, like, involved in what was going on. And that was a really cool feeling. And just, like, something you'll kind of, like, that's what a cinematographer experience is kind of like when you're looking for a shot or a story to tell. It's like you're so immersed in what's going on around you, and it makes me more present than anything. And that's something I realized during this, like, oh wow, I missed that feeling, and which is why I want to keep making more documentaries. I'm kind of obsessed with that aspect of filmmaking now. And then preparing, like, this is the last part of preparing for the documentary, but, like, I keep going on tangents, but we're still talking about the preparation of me actually doing this whole thing. So I knew my angle. The reason I wanted to make the film, the substance of it was everybody on that team had either been friends since elementary school, played travel ball together, or played Oak Park baseball together. A lot of these guys hung out. So there was this relationship within the team that was, like, super rare and, like, unparalleled. It would be hard for me to imagine that there's that many teams that are super close friends. Like, the core of the team is literally, like, all best friends. They all hang out. They, like, would hang out on weekends, like, drive together to games and practices. Like, that was a super huge part of the dynamic of the team and what I thought could make them be so successful. And then two, lots of D1 recruits on that team. So obviously there was a level of talent that was crazy high. So those two things together made me think, okay, there's something here. They're going to win, or they're going to go far. Like, there's something to document here, and there's a good story to tell, whether they win or not, because that ended up being what the film is about. Like, go watch the last 5 minutes of episode 3 and you'll see, like, that's pretty much what the closing monologue is about. So I knew that was everything I needed to prepare for the film. I got the okay from a mentor. I knew what my angle for the film was. I was watching different documentaries to get inspiration. I knew what it would require on my end in terms of sacrifice of time and doing everything on my own. So all that was set to go, and it was a very on-the-go documentary. So I knew I could do it because I was going to film as I go. So now we're going to transition into the actual process of what happened when I was filming and editing. So yeah, let's get into that. So something I learned during this process was that in films and even in books, there's like a central thread. I call it the central thread that ties the film together. So that means that it's pretty much what you might also call the main story arc. Like the beginning, the climax, and the end. Okay? That's that. And then there's like different little side stories that happen. There's the ups and downs of the season. There's showing the dynamic of the team and how close they are. But obviously the main story is the season. So that's something I learned during the filming, is like there has to be a central theme that runs through this whole thing that ties it all together. And that was the games during the season and the run they were trying to make in the playoffs. That was the goal. That was what everyone was talking about. That's why the closeness of the team mattered. That's why the downs were downs and the ups were ups. And that's why I had to document all that. So that's something I learned, is like, so when I do my next documentary, I'm going to have to figure out what's that central theme, and then how do we build around that to create an entire story piece that makes sense and is not boring. And not saying my film, like, I don't know if it was boring or not. You guys should, I seem to get some pretty good reviews on it, but that's an important piece. If you're going to do any type of storytelling, that there has to be some, I keep saying this, but some type of central theme, the thread of the film. So that some documentaries are set up more like films where the story already happened. Now we have to film around that story. So, for example, I watched a documentary about, if you watch one of those ESPN like 30 for 30 documentaries, a lot of those are like, I think all of them actually are about things that happened in the past. So I think there's one about O.J. Simpson, and what for those is like, what you do is like you compile a lot of footage and then you interview other people to tell that story. So you interview, like for OJ, you might interview someone close to him, the lawyer, whoever his coach might be. And then you put those interviews over the footage that you've compiled over the years of his career and all the incidents that went on that made him so infamous, like the murder and running away from the cops and the Bronco chase and all that. You take the interviews and then thread those into the footage to make the story. This is shot on the go. I'm doing, like, when I decided to make the film, I had nothing. I was going to film everything except for obviously a few shots like the state championship that OPRF won in 2012. I grabbed footage from that, but everything else was shot as the season progressed. So it's kind of an on-the-go type of thing. So if I'm not at all the events, I'm not going to have all of the events filmed, and there will be holes in the story. So that was something that's part of the commitment aspect of deciding to make a documentary like this. You have to be at the events. You have to be at the practices. You have to interview the players. You have to figure out you have to be thinking about the story as you're filming it and knowing which parts to film and be intuitive about how you're going to decide which players to film during certain parts of the game, when to press record. I mean, like, 3 seconds difference between, like, literally, like, when there's a part, and I think it's in episode 3, Adam Landsman hits the walk-off home run to advance into the next round of the playoffs. I think they were in the second round, they advanced to the third. I was about to stop recording. If I stop recording, I don't have that shot. That's the best shot in the entire film. So you have to be at these events and you have to constantly be recording. And this is a principle where I call film now, figure out the story later. Or at least film now and try to figure out the story as it's happening. But you can't really do that. When you're doing that, a million different stories and a million different possibilities will go through your head. So the story is really figured out in the editing process, and that's what I learned through this type of filmmaking. The next documentary I make is going to be more of the other type, where a lot of the stuff has already happened, and we're trying to tell the story about the past now instead of trying to tell a story about now in the future. So that it's just two different types of documentary filmmaking, and it was super dope. Like, all this stuff I learned on the go during the experience. This is like a side note, but like, that's why I wanted to take this gap year. I knew, or at least not go to school for a while, because I knew, like, doing all this stuff that I want to do and getting these opportunities, like, is such a huge learning experience. And all this information I'm telling you is from stuff that I actually did, not learned through a textbook. So not to diminish whatever that type of learning is, but I'm just saying, like, anyway, whatever. That's a whole other tangent. But because I was so motivated to make this movie, I knew I was going to be at most of the games. I was going to get permission to leave class to go to these away games whenever I could, and this was such a huge deal to me, and I believed so much in this film and what it could do for me, and just the story that I could tell with it, that I was motivated to be at all these games to tell the story. And that's all the stuff I'm talking about in this section of the podcast is the storytelling part, the creating the story, developing the story. This is all stuff that's good to know. So I didn't want to miss any of the story, and all of the stuff that happened was surprising to me as it happened. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen, and I was figuring it out. So when they lost the playoffs, They were one game away from going to the state tournament. So when that didn't happen, I was pretty sad. And I remember driving home just feeling really sad about not being able to film anymore. And I did film a little bit more. I got a couple more interviews after that to kind of wrap up the film, because I wasn't just going to end it right there. But yeah, once I was done filming, it was kind of that in itself was kind of an accomplishment, but that was only half the battle. So the editing process was also super crucial and super important, and I did not take that lightly. So editing was all done down here for the most part. I think the last couple days of editing I did upstairs just because I wanted a change of scenery. But editing was a grueling, long, painstaking process at times. But obviously you love, like, if filming is buying the canvas and creating the paint colors that you want to create and doing the outline in pencil, editing is actually painting and seeing everything come to life. And that obviously is the most rewarding part. But it's tough because sometimes you paint over a line and you have to start that whole section over or turn that section into something else. And sometimes as you're painting, you look at the whole thing and you see, oh my God, there's a whole new, I have a whole other idea now to go off this. And then you have to decide which way to go. You're at a fork in the road. And it's something that I can only try to describe, but you'd have to go through it to understand that process. It's like almost religious how much goes into that, how much like mental power goes into that, especially since I had never done something like that before. I think the next time it'll be a little bit easier and like less of a bumpy road. But yeah, the editing, I barely got any help. I got some help writing the monologues, but for the most part, I did most of the monologues on my own. Chuba helped me write the first one, and one of my old coaches also helped me write that one. And then I think Zaire gave me a little help with the audio engineer producing, the audio engineering Zaire did, and then for the voiceovers. And he also gave me a song and a beat that I used throughout the movie. And the beat was the main soundtrack throughout the whole thing. And then he did a verse on that beat for the end of episode 3 to go over the credits. So that was dope. Very happy about that. But overall, what I learned from that is like collaboration is such a gift, because I would have loved to like just be a director and be there for the editing process, but not actually have to be like in the muddy waters of the film and actually like be on the keyboard, cutting and pasting everything together. I would have loved to just like direct someone else to do that. And that's what I learned for this, is like for the next documentary I do, there's going to be a lot more collaboration. And I learned that through the editing process because, you know, like I said, it was just a lot of hours. But I chose to do everything, even for the event. I chose for all of this movie and for the event, I chose to do everything as manually and as individually as possible, because I wanted to learn all the pieces. I wanted to be a part of every single process that went into the film, because then I would learn the most about how to delegate going forward. So that was done on purpose and with a purpose, which was a super dope and humbling process. And obviously now I'll be better equipped to lead these types of things in the future. And that was the entire purpose of it, like I said. So that's kind of like all the stuff that I learned and all the advice that I can give from my own experience on making this documentary. Sorry about that. Now, there was I did some previews. I showed the coaches before I showed anybody. I showed some of my mentors after that, and then I showed my family a few days before the premiere. And Abby and Ava were there for that. So there was a little bit of like opinion receiving, and there was some tweaking. I actually, the last edits I made were a few days before the actual premiere itself. So it was just like almost a year long from deciding to make the documentary to completion and premiere. And so the point of this gap year, quote unquote gap year, is to decide if I like the media advertising side of filmmaking, where like I do freelance stuff and I help companies grow their media, or do I want to be a filmmaker? And that was a crossroad that I came to at the beginning of the summer, and I realized I don't know what I want to do. I need to go experience stuff before I make these decisions. And the idea was, okay, learn what you like doing and then go to college for that. And I'm kind of deciding right now, like, do I want to go to college for film school, or do I just want to keep doing what I'm doing, kind of reduce my freelance clients a little bit more, and then try to create more documentaries? And I'm at that crossroad right now. But what I know for certain is I am a documentarian. I'm going to be a filmmaker. That is going to be my career somehow. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to network my butt off and just keep investing and growing Thuzy. Thuzy is the company I'm trying to build to make documentaries. It's the production company. So that's why I'm giving away AirPods. That's why I'm buying all these new cameras, and that's why I have all these lights and putting out these podcasts. And I'm trying to use my podcast to network and talk about film, because it's my passion. Filmmaking is my passion. Storytelling is my passion. And so any information I can share, or anything I can give to help other young creators who want to make films and break the mold of what society says about age, I want to do that. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys, again, submit yourselves into the AirPod Pro giveaway, because I cannot wait to give those away. And every 100, for the next foreseeable future, every 100 subs, we will be giving something away. And that PS5 is coming. So you can submit for every giveaway. Every giveaway, it starts over. So we're just going to try to keep upping the ante, putting more dollars into what we're giving away, and just bringing attention to Thuzy. So show love to Thuzy, because the more you show love to Thuzy, the more chances you have to win free stuff, and the more stuff we get to make. If you guys enjoy our content, we're talking to you. So, and then check out Desire, and then check out, just everybody who I mentioned at the beginning. Check them out. And thanks for watching. I hope you guys get a lot out of this, and I hope you guys feel more enabled to create content and tell stories and document and use that footage to tell stories. So thank you guys, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.